What's goody, Sipper Society? It's your girl, Lady T, and welcome back to another episode of We Need to Talk here on the Tea Lounge. Today, we're diving deep into Ava DuVernay's latest masterpiece, Origin. This biographical drama is all about the life of Isabel Wilkerson and her groundbreaking book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent. So grab your snacks and sit tight, and let's get into it.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Yes, Origin is based on Isabella Wilkerson's journey across Germany, India, and the United States as she explores the caste system in these countries. Now, the movie kicks off with Wilkerson, played by phenomenal Anjanou Ellis-Taylor, dealing with some heavy personal tragedies. So just imagine losing your husband, mother, cousin, while trying to write a book that shakes the foundation of how we view race and bigotry. So Wilkerson starts her journey in the U.S. right after the tragic killing of Trayvon Martin. She begins to question if race is the only factor in bigotry. I mean, think about it. In India, everyone might be the same race, but the caste system still divides people. And then in Nazi Germany, Jews were considered an inferior race, despite being of European descent.
But longer form stuff, questions that I don't have the answer to.
So ask them in a piece.
I don't write questions. I write answers.
Questions like what?
Like, why does a Latino man deputize himself to stalk a black boy to protect an all-white community? What is that?
The racist bias I want you to explore, excavate for the readers.
We call everything racism. What does it even mean anymore? It's the default. When did that happen?
Brett, don't me. All right, so wait, so you're saying that he isn't a racist?
No, I'm not saying that he's not a racist.
Now, there was another cocktail party, part of the cocktail party scene, where Wilkerson is chatting with two white women who are trying to understand her ideas. It was low-key funny, but it also shows the disconnect some folks have when it comes to grasping complex issues like caste and race.
Talking about deliberate extermination over many years.
Yeah, but wasn't slavery for like hundreds of years, right, Isabel?
Slavery lasted 246 years. That's 13 generations of people, plus another 100 years of Jim Crow, segregation, violence, and murder.
It is, of course, horrific. I'm not downplaying any of it.
There were so many millions of African Americans who were murdered from the Middle Passage until the end of legal segregation, that it goes beyond the realm of an official number. There is no number.
I didn't know that.
Stunning.
It is, and I understand you're trying to make sense of American racism. It is noble. But your thesis linking caste in Germany with the United States is flawed.
Lady T,
Yes.
what do you think this scene says about people's understanding of caste and race?
Well, just based, first off, the audacity of the lady. Secondly, I guess it's rightfully so, because I think that people, well, especially when you see what happens in later on in the movie, they're just unaware of the fact that it's more so about the hierarchy or creating this illusion that there's something that, you know, one thing is better, or one population or what demographic, that's the word I want to use, is better than another, or to dehumanizing a sector of people, you know.
But this particular scene or this particular conversation, what I
Yes.
found interesting, what raised my eyebrow is that it brought a different way of thinking where she tried, the white woman tried to get you to be sympathetic because she mentions the name or the number of Jewish people that had been murdered, where Ingenue's response was, our number is unlimited or our
Right.
number is unknown. But then she meant the white woman was bringing how, you know, slavery was a form of profit, you know, of economic structure, of gain. You know, they saw, which I still think was contradicting because she said that they saw where they can make money and made a race, a stock or cattle or for profit, where the Jews were annihilated. And yes, they were annihilated because of their race and from the same skin color, same race. But I think what we failed to realize in this particular scene was how still white folks used whatever thinking of superiority or intimidation to now take a race and profit off of that race. So our logic or our thinking still might be off in a sense of the difference between the two or the similarities of the two. But the thing that we can't move away from is that the folks that still has this idealism of superiority is still of the whiter shade.
So you're basically saying that the fact that this white lady was referencing the fact that the Holocaust was tied into capitalism and failed to... Right. So...
we learned later on as we start talking some more and we go into the movie.
We will get into we'll get into
but that particular scene, she was trying to make her point how the reason why the Holocaust was so detrimental or not as severe as slavery was because a race was annihilated. But again, Wilkerson is trying to establish the point.
We were annihilated as well.
But not only were we annihilated, we're still being annihilated because our numbers are still unknown because it's still happening.
Climbing. It's still climbing.
Still climbing.
Well, it is, because the thing about it is, the interesting part about caste is that a lot of people don't necessarily want to annihilate the system or the hierarchy at all. They just want to be at the top of it. Hence, we have Palestine.
Okay. So
and those Jews going over there and are not...
So what do you think it says? What do you think that scene says about people's understanding then?
It says a lot about the fact that the illusion that they are desperately trying to create is actually what people tend to lend themselves to as far as their ideals and their perspectives, okay? They're very comfortable with the isms of it all, you know?
What about that is also a reminder that breaking down these concepts requires from us a level of patience and willingness to listen and learn.
Yeah, it's a willingness to listen to and learn, but also if you were to look at the scene from a perspective to where we have Wilkerson wanting to deconstruct this system, then we can't take her bigotry or her bias as something that's necessarily racial.
Okay.
It's just ignorance.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So therefore, she's well within her right to speak it, and as soon as we begin to place her here, the white woman is speaking and trying to do this, that, and the third, then we're just falling into it, and the cycle begins to continue. So, as Wilkerson begins to dig deeper, she visits Germany and finds out that the Nazis took some cues from America's Jim Crow laws, and that debunks her comment right there. And so now, listen, we got Hitler out here looking at how the U.S. treated black folks to shape his own racist policies. And that's some chilling history right there.
It is harder to dehumanize a single person standing in front of you. Harder to dehumanize an individual you've gotten the chance to know. Which is why people and groups who seek power and division don't bother with dehumanizing an individual. Better to attach a stigma, a taint of pollution to an entire group. Dehumanize the group, and you've successfully dehumanized every individual person within it.
Whew, so that was truly heavy. And it touches on some of the heavy losses that Wilkerson faces as well. She often imagines talking to loved ones who passed away, like her husband Brett and her mother Ruby. It's a heart-wrenching, but it adds such a deep layer to her story.
How do you think that these personal losses influence Wilkerson's work?
So, honestly, I think her personal tragedies fueled her passion and determination. When you experience loss, it changes you. And I believe that it gave her the strength to tackle such a monumental project. It was like she was driven by a need to make sense of the world's injustices, because perhaps she felt like she was experiencing some sort of injustice by losing people, you know, especially her husband so suddenly. You know?
I want to say when you said especially her husband, because it made me go back to when she was talking to the Blair Underwood character at the cocktail party.
Exactly.
And she was trying to understand, like, what makes a Spanish dude, you know, want to police a white neighborhood, or what makes her mother, who was very smart, educated black woman, say, well, you know, Trayvon shouldn't have even been in that neighborhood, or why did he have a hood on, or why didn't he announce himself? It was like almost thinking, you know, because she said, I'm not an author, like I'm not a journalist. I'm not a journalist to take on this news incident that happened. And then he was like, but you're an author, or you're a writer. And she was like, I've written one book. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, she had only written one book. So, and this is, remember, this is all recent. This is right after Trayvon. So I think when Trayvon happened, and then you lose your husband, who happens to be a white man, which I thought was like, you know what I'm saying? Then you lose your mom, you know what I'm saying? Then you lose your first cousin. Yes, I definitely think that it fueled her in a way, because she wasn't even going to do the project. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't of interest to her, because again, she said she's not a journalist, but I think that once she started to be curious about the thinking behind why we do certain things, the root of that, why we say certain things, why we feel certain things, and now all these deaths happen back to back. Yes, I definitely think that that gave her the ammunition she needed to write this book.
And also the distraction.
And the distraction.
You know? So Wilkerson eventually travels to India, right? And she learns about the Dalit, and otherwise known as the untouchables, at the bottom of the caste system. She visits the home of Dr. Ambedkar, who championed their rights. It was a powerful and moment that ties together the global nature of caste and bigotry.
And do you remember the part in the movie when she went to India, how one of the young writers was telling her, or one of the young professors was saying that she wrote her thesis off of a visit that Dr. King had when he was in India, and Dr. King, one of Dr. King's speeches when he was in India, he called himself a Dayas, because he said that in America, he is an untouchable. So if he was a black man living in India, he would be considered, under all of the categories of the Dayas, he would be considered as a black man as an untouchable. But before we go more into that, I wanted to go back to the whole concentration camps camps and how
Yes.
that was how slavery was the formula or the blueprint.
They were actually, I think,
Well,
focused
no,
more on Jim Crow.
slavery and Jim Crow. It was the
Okay.
whole package.
The whole
It
deal.
was the whole deal.
whole kit and
but
caboodle.
what was funny, not funny about that investigation is that Wilkerson now is in the library. This is the beauty of journalism and journalists and writers. She's in the library and she sees a picture of a meeting that they are having. And in the meeting, she's like, what's that meeting about? So she goes and finds the notes
Right.
of that was taken in the meeting. And the notes in the meeting is where you hear these men talking about, wow, that slavery thing, that Jim Crow, that civil rights, that's an interesting template to
Yeah.
how we can use that to kill off the Jews.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring
It
that
pretty
up.
much debunks what the lady that she
Hello.
was having
Exactly.
a brunch with stated.
Exactly.
You
So
know-
now when we come back to her traveling to India, trying again to find a connection, here we are now in a brown country. Everybody's the same color, because this is the point she was trying to make. Everybody's the same color, but yet you have these different levels. And Dr. King, another speech that I didn't hear in high school, I didn't hear in elementary school, I didn't hear until seeing this movie and then doing the research where Dr. King recognized himself as an untouchable.
Right. And a lot of times, a lot of Dr. King's speeches have gone, unrecognized because I think they tried to create even a caste system amongst Black Americans to where he's deemed to be, like, okay, this is the quintessential Black man. This is how you should conduct yourselves. And then, he found himself in trouble. I think a big part of the reason why he was taken out of there was the Beyond Vietnam speeches he began to give, and he started to come back around. But that's another story. Listen,
Girl.
by the end of the film, right, Wilkerson speaks about her book, Caste, on stage, sharing how understanding caste can help us fight bigotry. The book became #1 on New York Times bestseller and is a testament to the impact of her work.
If we start with that, what is the difference, in your opinion, between caste and race?
Well, caste is basically the artificial, arbitrary, graded ranking of human value in a society. And caste determines one's standing, respect, benefit of the doubt, access to resources or lack thereof. And here in American hierarchy, race becomes the physical manifestation that determines where one is viewed as being ranked historically. It's the cue card, it's the signifier of where a person is placed in the hierarchy.
For many people, they might jump at hearing this and say like, whoa, 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 whoa. How dare you say that America has a caste system?
Other ways of measuring people is caste is the bones, race is the skin, and then class is the accents, the enunciation, the education and dress, the things the diction, the kind of things that we can control that can that help ourselves to elevate ourselves out of the restrictions. But class does not mean the same as caste. In other words, if you can act your way out of it, it's class. If you cannot act out of it, it's caste.
Right. So before I ask you, because I have a question, and
Yes.
before I ask you this question, I love the way she ends the movie when she says, without caste, everyone would be free.
Yes.
So do you think that this film effectively conveys the importance of understanding caste in today's society?
Yeah, well, I think that's when people, some of the critics, and we'll get into their thoughts, wanted her to do it as a documentary. She chose to do it as a biopic so that way she could have some characters, and she felt like as if cinema, a movie would be the most prolific way to address it. However, I don't think the movie's intention was to get us to, change our thought process. I think it was to spark a conversation. You understand? So because, well, I'll get into that in a little bit, but I think so. I think that the film did its job to tell this woman's story and to start a conversation. I think that's what the film was there for. As far as our thought processes and how we look at caste and how we address it, that's a different story, and that's why the conversation begins. So this film makes it clear that caste and race are intertwined, and that understanding both is crucial in combating bigotry. It's not just about pointing out the problems, but understanding their roots to create real change. So now let's talk about some critiques, like I discussed just a moment ago. Critics have called this film ambitious and a masterpiece. Ingenue Ellis-Taylor's performance is getting major love, and rightfully so. But not everyone is on board. Some, like Candace Frederick from the Huffington Post, who feels like the film doesn't move the conversation forward. I agree with the sentiments of the critics, particularly Frederick, that the film, like the criticism of the book, pointed out already understood issues without moving the conversation forward. However, the conversation didn't just need advancement. It needed initiation, and that's why Ava DuVernay's choice to create a biopic rather than documentary was a brilliant artistic decision. Additionally, I firmly disagree that the movie requires subtlety, like that lady said. Sometimes you have to hit people over the head with the truth. The story of caste and race is complex and messy, and DuVernay didn't shy away from that.
What do you think is the most important takeaway from the movie Origin?
So the biggest takeaway is that bigotry is multifaceted, right? It's not just about race or color, but also about societal structures like caste. We need to understand that these layers to fight against them effectively. Like my dance teacher used to say, you have to know the line to break the line, right? Origin is a wake-up call to look at a deeper issue and act accordingly. Now, while Wilkerson's cast has garnered much praise, it's also important to consider critics of the caste framework. There's scholars like Oliver Cromwell Cox, who argued that economic exploitation, not caste, is at the root of racial hierarchy in the U.S. Cox's work, Caste, Class, and Race, emphasized class struggle and racial violence as central to understanding social dynamics, a perspective that's often overlooked. So Cox pointed out that comparing the U.S. race relations to the caste system in India can oversimplify and obscure the economic and class-based factors driving racial oppression. He argued that focusing on caste can detach race relations from class politics, which is crucial in society where racial exploitation is deeply tied to economic structures.
The principal was furious, so he tells his secretary to check my records, and of course, they confirmed that my legal name is Miss Hale. So, he says to me, Hale, I don't know any Hales. You're not from around here. Where's your father from? And I said, he's from Alabama. He said, I knew you weren't from around here. Know how I knew? And I said, no. And he said, real cold. Because you're looking me in the eye. Color folk around here know better. I was scared.
I got to pause for Audrey McDowell. Donald. I called him McDowell, like
Girl.
coming to America. Audrey McDonald.
Yes.
She is amazing. She's right up there with Ingenue and Regina King. But go ahead. I'm so sorry.
And she's
so good.
Because I felt the chills. I
Yes.
felt the chills. So how do you think that these critiques affect our understanding of Wilkerson's work and the film Origin?
Well, before I'll get a little deeper into it, but I do want to address the fact that I think that Cox and other critics are basing their assumptions or their perspective on like the literal meaning of caste. You know, the fact that we're talking about a ethnic group and a religious, like it's based on religion. You know, so with that, if you take caste at its pure definition and you leave out capitalism, you leave out the economic pacers, then we have an issue. So these critics remind us that while caste is a useful framework, it's not the whole story. Understanding the economic and class dimensions of racial oppression is essential. Wilkerson's focus on caste highlights important social dynamics, but we can't ignore the role of capitalism and class exploitation in perpetuating these racial hierarchies. Right. Isabel Wilkerson's Caste offers a powerful narrative, but it's crucial to engage all the multiple perspectives that we have. Ava DuVernay's Origin brings these discussions to a wider audience, sparking important conversations about race, caste, and class. So remember, y'all, understanding the root of these issues is key to addressing them effectively. So that's all I have for you all today, fam. If you haven't seen Origin, I suggest you go check it out, okay? And it's a film that challenges us to think and feel on a whole new level. And wait a minute, before I forget, don't be shy. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this dialogue alive, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to We Need to Talk. I'm Lady T, and I will catch you next time. Stay informed and keep the conversation, because remember, we don't give a sip.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.